In a quiet American town, a shocking murder took place, shaking the entire community. The story behind this crime turned out to be filled with deception, betrayal, and the pain of being wronged by the people closest to you. At the center of this tragedy was a love triangle that destroyed several lives and shattered the faith in the sincerity of human relationships. This high-profile case became a heavy burden for Detective Ethan Brooks, who had no idea how personal this investigation would become for him. Ethan Brooks and his wife, Julia, were considered the perfect couple in their small town. Ethan was a respected detective with an impeccable reputation, having solved many complex cases. His wife, Julia, worked as a teacher at the local school and was loved by both her students and their parents. The couple had been married for over 10 years and appeared to be truly happy together. The Brooks' best friend was Mark Hudson, a successful businessman who owned a chain of restaurants. Ethan and Mark had been friends since their school days and remained incredibly close throughout their lives. Mark often spent time at the Brooks' home, having dinner with them on weekends and accompanying them to various events. To those around them, it seemed nothing could destroy this friendship. However, behind the facade of ideal relationships, there was tension that had been growing for years. Julia felt that Ethan wasn't giving her enough attention because of his obsession with work. Ethan, on the other hand, suspected that there was something unsaid between his wife and best friend, but he pushed those thoughts away, unwilling to believe in the possibility of betrayal. Mark carefully hid his true feelings for Julia, masking them with friendly concern. This continued until that fateful day when the lives of all three were changed forever. On the morning of September 15th, Mark Hudson was found dead in his country house. Detective Brooks was the first to arrive at the crime scene, and he immediately realized that he was about to face one of the toughest cases of his career. Mark's body was found in the living room, surrounded by broken objects, indicating a struggle with the killer. The cause of death was several stab wounds to the chest. During the crime scene investigation, Ethan discovered several strange details. Broken glass and an empty bottle of expensive wine were scattered on the floor, suggesting that Mark had spent the evening with someone close to him. A woman's scarf was lying on the coffee table, and Ethan felt it looked familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had seen it before. Moreover, there were no signs of forced entry, hinting that the killer was someone the victim knew well. The news of Mark's death was a devastating blow to both Ethan and Julia. Ethan struggled to maintain his professionalism, but inside, something had broken. He couldn't imagine who would want his best friend dead. Julia, too, seemed devastated and in shock. She cried endlessly, repeating that she couldn't believe what had happened. The couple supported each other through this difficult time, unaware of the dark secrets this tragedy would soon reveal. As the investigation progressed, Ethan uncovered a series of clues pointing to a secret love affair between Mark and Julia. Among Mark's belongings, Ethan found a diary where Mark had recorded details of his meetings with Julia, including dates, locations, and even some intimate specifics. Comparing these entries with Julia's work schedule, Ethan was horrified to realize that his wife had indeed been unfaithful to him with his best friend. Witness interviews only confirmed Ethan's worst fears. A waitress from Mark's favorite restaurant revealed that she often saw him there with a woman who strongly resembled Mrs. Brooks. They always chose secluded tables and behaved like a couple in love. One of Julia's colleagues at school also recalled seeing Mark pick her up after classes on several occasions. With each new piece of evidence, Ethan's suspicions about Julia grew. He couldn't believe that the woman he loved more than life itself could betray his trust so cruelly. Tormenting questions swirled in his mind. How long had their affair been going on? What did Julia find in Mark that she lacked in her husband? Could she have killed her lover to keep her deceit a secret? Ethan felt the ground slipping away beneath his feet. Everything he believed in turned out to be a lie. Now, he had to interrogate his own wife as a suspect in the murder and make her tell the truth. It was the hardest task of his life, but there was no other choice. Brooks promised himself he would get to the bottom of it, no matter what it cost him. Despite the overwhelming circumstantial evidence linking Julia to the victim, there was still no direct proof of her guilt in the murder. The murder weapon had not been found, and there were no fingerprints or DNA linking Julia to the crime scene. Moreover, She had an alibi for the time of Mark's death. She was at a parent-teacher meeting at school, which was confirmed by multiple witnesses. The conflicting evidence left the investigation at an impasse. Ethan didn't know which version of events to believe. On the one hand, everything pointed to Julia's infidelity, suggesting a possible motive for killing her lover. On the other hand, she adamantly denied any involvement in the crime and seemed genuinely devastated by the loss of her friend. Julia swore to Ethan that she had never crossed the line of friendship in her relationship with Mark, although she admitted she may have given him false hope. Working on this case became an emotional and psychological burden for Ethan. He had to bear the weight of suspecting the person closest to him all on his own. His colleagues advised him to step away from the investigation due to his personal involvement, but Ethan couldn't do it. He had to unravel this web of lies himself and figure out who his wife truly was, a victim of circumstance or a cold-blooded killer. The days turned into an endless torture for Brooks. He hardly slept, constantly replaying the case's details and fragments of memories in his mind. How could he have been so blind, not seeing what was happening right under his nose? Were the years of their marriage just a farce? These thoughts drove him to the brink of madness. Ethan knew it was time to use his final card and look at the case from a new angle. Just as Ethan was close to giving up on finding the truth, the case took an unexpected turn. Amanda, Mark's ex-girlfriend, came forward to the police, claiming that the night before his death, Mark had visited her and behaved very erratically. According to her, Mark told her that Julia was pregnant with his child and planned to divorce Ethan to start a new life with him. This news shocked Amanda, as she had once hoped to build a life with Mark, but he had chosen his career over family. Amanda's statement made Ethan question Julia's innocence in the murder once again. Could she really have been planning to leave him and live her life with the man he had considered his closest friend? Ethan didn't know what to believe. On the one hand, this could simply be the gossip of a scorned woman. On the other, jealousy and the fear of losing a loved one often drive people to commit crimes. Ethan decided to confront Julia again and directly ask her about the pregnancy. To his surprise, she didn't deny it. She broke down in tears and admitted that she was indeed expecting Mark's child. According to her, it was a moment of weakness that she deeply regretted. Julia swore that she had never planned to leave Ethan and begged him for forgiveness. This confession completely threw Ethan off balance. He didn't know how to feel about his wife now or if he should even continue the investigation. One thing was clear: Julia had hidden far too much from him, and this deceit had destroyed their marriage. At the same time, his gut told him that she couldn't have killed the father of her unborn child. He needed to dig deeper and find out who else stood to gain from Mark's death. Shortly after his conversation with Julia, Ethan received disturbing news. Someone was watching his wife and might even want her dead. The hunt for the killer had now become a race against time. Ethan needed to find the real murderer as quickly as possible to protect Julia and their unborn child. Brooks fully immersed himself in the investigation, reviewing all the evidence from a new angle. He recalled that there were no signs of a struggle in Mark's office, even though everything at the house indicated a violent fight. This suggested that the murder might have occurred elsewhere, and the scene in the living room had been staged. Additionally, Mark's blood had not fully coagulated, indicating that he had been taking blood-thinning medication. Could this somehow be connected to the killer? In time, Ethan's suspicion turned to Stephen, Mark's business partner. A financial audit of the company revealed that shortly before his death, Mark had planned to sell his stake and step away from the business. For Stephen, this would mean losing control of the company and seeing all his plans crumble. Now, Ethan just needed to find proof of Stephen's guilt and prevent an attack on Julia. During a tense operation, Ethan and his colleagues managed to lure Stephen into a meeting where he attempted to kill Julia. Thankfully, Brooks arrived in time to stop the tragedy and apprehend the killer, gathering irrefutable evidence. It turned out that Stephen had killed Mark in his office by spiking his wine with medication that was incompatible with alcohol. He then transported the body to Mark's home to stage the scene as if the lover had been defending himself from a jealous husband. The plan almost succeeded, but Stephen's desire to eliminate all witnesses ultimately led to his downfall. After Stephen's arrest and the charges against Julia were dropped, Ethan finally breathed a sigh of relief. The case, which had tested him to his core, was closed. However, the satisfaction of capturing the killer was overshadowed by the bitterness of betrayal from the people closest to him. Ethan still had to confront his feelings and decide how to move forward. He couldn't forgive Julia for her infidelity, even if it was a one-time mistake. It had been the final blow after months of secrecy and suspicion. Yet, he knew he couldn't simply abandon her in such a situation. She was carrying an innocent child, and that child didn't deserve to suffer because of the adult's mistakes. In the end, they decided to divorce but maintain a civil relationship for the sake of their future child. Ethan promised Julia that he would support her and be an active part of the child's life. No matter what, they agreed that the past would remain in the past, and it was time to move forward, learning from their mistakes. The final conversation with Julia was hard for Ethan. As he looked into her tear-filled eyes, he recalled the best moments of their marriage and the love that had once bound them. Had it all been a lie? Julia once again apologized, saying that the guilt of her actions would haunt her for the rest of her life. She didn't want anything other than the chance to remain in Ethan's life, even if only as the mother of his child. As Ethan listened to her remorseful words, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever truly be able to move on from this story and let love back into his life. For now, the wound from the betrayal was too fresh, and his heart too broken. Only time could heal these wounds. Ethan hoped he would find the strength to endure the pain and become a good father to his future child. Perhaps that was the true meaning behind all his trials. The murder of Mark Hudson and the events that followed left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Both Ethan and Julia learned through bitter experience how devastating the consequences of lies and betrayal can be in close relationships. What started as an attempt to hide a fleeting weakness turned into a tragedy that forever changed their lives. Even though she was exonerated in the eyes of the law, Julia lost the most precious thing: her husband's love and trust. Now, she faced raising the child alone, bearing the guilt for the death of the child's father and the collapse of her family. Ethan, though he retained his freedom and reputation, lost his peace of mind. The betrayal by his wife and best friend left him more cynical and distrustful of others. The events taught the characters that no lie, no matter how well-intended, can be justified. Secrets and half-truths are a weak foundation for relationships. Only complete trust and honesty between partners can protect them from the destructive consequences of deception. Will time heal Ethan and Julia's emotional wounds? Will they manage to build new lives and become good parents? Only the future will tell. What matters most is that they have learned the right lessons from what happened and are ready to move forward, determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Perhaps, after enduring this nightmare and seeking redemption, they may one day forgive themselves and each other. After all, true love and a strong family are worth fighting for, no matter the obstacles.